So with that said, we move on to a company that I have stated multiple times and I will continue to state multiple times on this broadcast today, next week, the week after that, and for years to come. My number two wrestling promotion, my favorite promotion, number two favorite promotion, currently in professional wrestling is Impact Wrestling. And this past Saturday night, Impact Wrestling made quite some headlines with their Hard to Kill pay-per-view, which took place from the factory in Dallas, Texas. First of all, as I predicted, it opened up with the Ultimate X women's match, I believe, and then it closed with the only match on the card that could have been the main event of that show. And that was a Texas death match for the Women's Knockouts World Championship. And I'm going to get to that in my next segment. But for right now, I want to talk about what transpired on that show. And I've said this on this show, I've said this on social media, and I will continue to say this. What Scott D'Amore has done with Impact Wrestling since he and Don Callis took over in early 2018 is nothing short of brilliant. They turned a company like Impact Wrestling, which Warrington in 2012 was a clear number 2. By 2014, they were down at number 3, surpassed by Ring of Honor Wrestling. Even though they were on Spike TV, their product was shit. I can admit that. It was shit. And then in 2018, when they, rebranded a couple of times or 3 times, they went from TNA to Impact Wrestling, from Impact Wrestling to GFW, from GFW back to Impact Wrestling, and they were just a laughingstock. So what Scott D'Amore has done in 4 years, they've brought Impact Wrestling respect, they've brought Impact Wrestling back its loyal fan base, and even though some fans still put Impact Wrestling down as being just what TNA used to be, Impact Wrestling is still a respectable show. You know that if you tune into Impact Wrestling on Access TV, that you're going to have to watch a top-tier wrestling broadcast. It might have some comedy that you don't like. It might have some characters that you're not attracted to. But no one will deny that in that ring, in that squared circle, when you're surrounded by the Impact faithful, they put on a great show. And Hard to Kill proved that. So we gotta talk about the fact that it appears that they're going with the Ring of Honor Wrestling Invasion storyline, which is how they're selling it to us. Because that's not really the case, because Ring of Honor Wrestling is currently inactive. And as far as I know, and as far as it's being reported, all these stars that made their quote-unquote debut for Impact Wrestling at Hard to Kill are no longer signed to Ring of Honor Wrestling contracts. So yes, they're former Ring of Honor stars that have invaded Impact Wrestling's ring, but they're not currently signed to Ring of Honor Wrestling. This is pretty much their version of 2001's WCW and ECW invasion of WWF, where those companies no longer existed, but they were still brought in, and in storyline they invaded the then WWF. Now, excuse me, I don't know most of these stars. I do recognize Mike Bennett, I recognize Maria Canales Bennett, and I recognize Matt Taven. So, on that note alone, that excites me. If you were to ask me, back in 2016, I wanted 3 men to lead Impact Wrestling, to be the face of that company, and to really defined that era of Impact and put their companies on their back. And those three men were Ethan Carter III, EC3, who I firmly believe he should be appearing on Impact Wrestling very shortly. The second man on that list was Eli Drake, who is currently performing as L.A. Knight, on NXT, killing it, by the way. And number 3 was Mike Bennett. When he first made his debut in early 2016, I was a fan of his shtick. And then I read that he only signed a 1-year contract, which was a big red flag. Not just for Mike Bennett, but for Impact Wrestling itself. I mean, that company back then was in trouble. They couldn't sign stars to longer deals. So that was a big red flag. So his exit from the company was expected. Now he's back with a bigger profile. As far as I'm concerned, his personal life, his personal relationships have been sorted, and he's not dealing with so much issues right now. So he's a lot more focused on his profession, on his career. So gotta applaud that. But hey, they're being brought in as a tag team, as a rival tag team, as an invading tag team to the already short-handed tag team division that Impact has. I mean, Impact Wrestling, their tag division, all it has are the Good Brothers, which are, I believe, the current tag team champions. They have pretty much no challengers. They have the Bullet Club, whichever combination of those stars you want to deal with. And they have Finn Juice. David Finlay and Juice Robinson, former tag team champions, but they've gone back and forth with the Good Brothers time and time again. Hell, they did that pretty much for the most part of 2021, so they can't keep that up for very long. So OGK, inserting them into the equation, inserting them into the tag team division, gives them something to do. And, you know, more stars from New Japan Pro Wrestling are coming back to Impact Wrestling. Jay White himself is coming back to Impact Wrestling in the coming weeks. Will they do something meaningful with him this time? Hopefully. It's hard because he's not their star. But hey, I mean, they put the World Championship on Kenny Omega at one point last year. So we'll see. And then we've got the former Ring of Honor World Women's World Champion in Roxy showing up and just staring Deonna Purrazzo down at a Hard to Kill. And unfortunately, Impact Wrestling hotshot the belt to Deonna Purrazzo. I get it. She's the virtuosa. I get it. She's your top guy, your top gal, on your women's division. Over Mickie James, in my point. Even though Mickie James is still Knockouts champion. And yes, I have said it here, Deonna Purrazzo is the future of Impact Wrestling, and they should value her in that manner. But Impact Wrestling needs to learn how to build stuff. Build to these big-time matches. I mean, it was champion versus champion. And they did what? They did what on TV? They built it on social media. Big whoop. Big whoop. And yeah, they're on Access TV, which I get it. Anthem owns that network, so Impact Wrestling will never get canceled, but they can't reach a big enough audience for it to matter anymore. But yeah, Impact Wrestling made headlines at Hard to Kill. They brought in some former Ring of Honor stars, and they had a great all-around show.